Welcome back to the Prez podcast. We're going to do our week 3 picks, but first, we're going to do a recap. Of course, I'm the Prez, and this is Serena.
Keith.
There it is. Kina. Anyways, we're back. We're going to start with a recap of Thursday night games. Then we're going to do 5 games we're going to give you a little more detail on and give our previews for, and then we'll pick the rest of the games, do some quick picks, but either way, we're going to pick the winners for the rest of week 3. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Thursday night between the 49ers and the Giants. Game went pretty much how we predicted if you watched our broadcast on Wednesday. Not much of a game. San Francisco dominated. The Giants look like they're not a team that's going to be back in the playoffs this year. I know they've had a rough schedule to start the season. Facing Dallas and San Francisco in 2 out of the first 3 weeks is not how you want to start your season with the way those teams are playing. But I also don't see a lot of reason for hope there. Their offensive line looks bad. Daniel Jones isn't playing particularly well. And their defense, that was playing pretty good last year. The defense is not doing well. San Francisco was able to do whatever they wanted, throwing the ball, running the ball. San Francisco, if you look at them going forward, and the Cowboys, they have to be the 2 teams in NFC in my mind. I know everyone's going to be like, well, what about Philadelphia? Well, Philadelphia hasn't hit full stride yet. I don't think they've had a really impressive performance yet, even though they're 2-0. But for San Francisco, 3-0, and I just don't see anybody stopping them anytime soon. We kind of eyeballing that Week 5 matchup against the Cowboys they had. It's really going to be very interesting. But for them, they're 3-0. For the Giants, 1-2, not looking good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think much has changed with the expectations for either of these teams. I still think San Francisco is going to be great, and I still think that the Giants are going to be very bad.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our Week 3 games we choose. This is an interesting week. There's a lot of matchups between some good teams and bad teams, so picking these 5 games was a little difficult this week just because of the matchups. It happens. But these are the ones we picked, and we're going to start off with a defensive battle between the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans. Both these teams 1-1. Both could easily be 2-0 or 0-2. They've had really close games all the way, but their defenses have carried the load for them. Cleveland doesn't turn the ball over a couple times. They could be 2-0. If Tannehill doesn't throw 3 picks against New Orleans in week 1, maybe they are 2-0. But either way, both played very close games. Defenses carrying the way, and it'll be very interesting to see what these quarterbacks do in these games because it's going to be relied on them. This is the first game with Cleveland without Chubb. So we'll see. Derrick Henry's kind of been banged up too. I think he'll probably play, but it's going to be really how these quarterbacks play against these defenses. And honestly, I think I'm going to take the Cleveland defense right now, and I got them beating the Titans in this game.
I agree. I think that the Browns are a more complete team. I think they have a better offense. They signed Kareem Hunt. Maybe he'll be able to make a little bit of a difference, and maybe the loss of Chubb won't affect them that much. So I have them winning.
Okay, you have them winning as well? Okay. Next up, in an interesting game, we have the upstart Atlanta Falcons, who are 2-0, going to Detroit against the 1-1 Lions. And the Lions are banged up. They got 4 starters out, especially 2 on that offensive line. But Goff has been playing great, and the passing offenses look good. The problem for them is their defense. And I was worried about this. I talked a bit about it in our NFL preview podcast that I get the hype around Detroit, but the problem for me is they have not made enough strides defensively to really compete with the top tier teams. And this is a bad matchup for them. I think the Falcons are going to be able to run the football, do what they want offensively. I think this will be an interesting game for Desmond Ridder. We saw some progression in that game he had against Green Bay last week. Maybe he'll give it a little bit more to us against a poor Detroit team. And I think I have the Falcons winning this game. I think they're going to be able to do enough offensively, keep Detroit off the ball offensively more, and just control this game. And I think the Falcons go to Detroit and win.
I agree. I think that with the key injuries on Detroit, I think that the Falcons rushing game.
Yes, there you go.
I think that they will be able to run the ball down the field, and they are going to score lots of points against the Lions defense, and the Lions just aren't going to be able to come back.
Okay. Next up, we have another NFC tilt. It's kind of interesting. We have the Saints, who are also 2-0, three NFC South teams 2-0, going to Green Bay against the Packers. Now, the Packers lost by 1 point in week 2 to the Falcons, which we just talked about, that Falcon team. The Saints had a 1 point win in week 1, a 3 point win over Carolina in week 2. They're on a short week. Jamal Williams now is on the IR, and Kamara doesn't come back until next week after his suspension. And even with that said, even with the problems at the running back position, their overall offense hasn't looked great. Now, don't get me wrong, they played against a decent defense in Tennessee in week 1 and an underrated defense in Carolina. They still have Brian Burns in Carolina, and they have some guys that can stow them. But I just haven't seen enough from New Orleans offense right now. I know Derek Carr has made some big throws at key moments, but I just really haven't seen him get in rhythm. And for Green Bay, there's worry about Aaron Jones if he's going to come back healthy. But the thing I'm seeing from Jordan Love is I'm seeing some growth there. I'm seeing some reasons to be excited. I do think that their defense is a little bit better, and that's why I have the Packers winning this one. I think the Packers will win just because I'm not really a believer in that Saints offense yet. Even as good as the Saints defense has played, I got the Packers in a low-scoring affair, maybe like 17-13.
I agree. I think that I don't think the Saints will be able to capitalize on Green Bay's weakness in the run defense with a third-string running back starting for them. I don't think that their offense is going to be able to do much, so I have the Packers winning.
We seem to be in alignment. That probably won't be for all the picks this week, but so far on the 3 key games. Next up, it's an interesting game. Now, there's some interesting aspects with the weather going on in D.C. This could be a wet, messy game, but it's Buffalo against Washington. Commanders 2-0. Now, both their wins aren't against great teams. They beat Arizona at home and then went to Denver and beat the Broncos. But now they get a real challenge here. I know Buffalo lost week 1, but they showed us what they really were against the Raiders in week 2, and I think they're going to get a team in Buffalo that wants to show what they're worth and prove to people, hey, we're still a top-tier AFC team. And there was all this talk about the Jets and Miami, and Buffalo's like, okay, we ran the division the last few years. It's our division still. So I feel like Buffalo's going to come in here still with a chip on their shoulder, trying to get some of that. And I think Josh Allen played great last week. I think he's going to continue. And Washington, the thing with Washington, they haven't seen, even though they've won 2 games, they haven't played a complete game. They were down in the first half to Arizona. They were down in the first half to Denver. Made comebacks in both those games. If you get down to Buffalo's defense and Josh Allen aren't going to let you back in the game, in my opinion. That's why I have the Bills winning this one on the road.
I agree. I like the Commanders, but I just think that Buffalo is just more of a complete and proven team, and I think that they looked really good last week. And against Washington, who, again, they're in the similar conversation, I think, with the Raiders, you might say. And I think that there's going to be better quarterback play on Buffalo, better offense, better defense. So I have them win.
Okay. In agreement so far. Next up, a battle of 2-0 teams. Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia. Tampa Bay, the surprise. They went into Minnesota week 1. Handled the Bears last week. Now they face the defending NFC champions, the Eagles, who, they had a road win in New England. They had, kind of back and forth. Well, they got the lead and just kind of held off Minnesota to win last Thursday. But, everybody's saying we haven't really seen a complete offensive Philadelphia team like we've seen, the last year. And part of that is, you have a new offensive coordinator. Part of it is the way the teams are playing them. But the thing with Tampa Bay's best part of their defense, in my mind, is their interior rush defense with Vita Vea. And so I really see that Philadelphia's going to have to open up the passing game in this game. And I'll be really interesting to see how they do that. How they going to start with some quick passes, what their game plan is going to be, or if they're just going to lean back on that offensive line and try to run the ball. We'll see. It'll be very interesting. For Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield has played great. He's made connections with Mike Evans, obviously, and Chris Godwin. Rashad White has played well, and their offense is doing enough to win these games and not turning the football over. Most importantly, they can't do that against Philadelphia. They want to win. And then also their defense, like I talked about, their defense still has guys that are on that Super Bowl 55 team. So it's not like this is a bad defense. So the questions on Tampa Bay were really about quarterback play, and Baker's done enough. I think this is going to be an exciting game. I think this game is going to be closer than people expect. But I do still feel like the Eagles are more talented and will pull this out in the end.
I agree.
5 for 5 on these picks. We'll see what happens with the other 9.
I think that Philadelphia's defense, if they can hold off the Buccaneers' offense, and if their offense can get going, if Jalen Hurts plays well, has better decision making, and if they can lean back on that run game, then I think that they will be able to win.
Okay. All right, so those are our 5 deep dives. Now we're going to get into the rest of the games for the week for Sunday and Monday. And we'll just do a quick pick on them. Keen and I will give you who we're picking and a little snippet of it. And this has kind of been the format we're kind of going with. Please comment on if you like this format, if you want us to change the format, if you have suggestions. We love hearing from those who watch our videos. So please let us know. All right, next up, Broncos go to Miami. Could be Russell Wilson's last start, maybe, with Sean Payton. Heard rumors, weird rumors. To face the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle out, unfortunately. But I still got Miami beating the Broncos in Miami.
I agree. I just think the Dolphins are just way better. Their offense is just really good, and they're going to win.
Right. Next up, we got the Chargers versus the Minnesota Vikings. 2 0-2 teams. Is this a loser leaves town match? Could be. You don't come back from 0-3 and make the playoffs. It's very, very rarely done. Chargers had their issues. Minnesota has had their issues. And to me, it just came down to whose coach I trusted more. And I trust Kevin O'Connell more, so I'm taking the Vikings.
I think that Minnesota, they were able to hold their own against the Eagles, except for those turnovers. So if they don't turn the ball over against the Chargers, who haven't proven that much, then I think that they could pull this out.
So you have the Vikings as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, next up, the Patriots go to New York to face the Sad Jets. And Bill Belichick owns the New York Jets. Absolutely owns them. Owns Zach Wilson. And I think they're going to own this matchup and get their first win of the year. Give me the Patriots.
This is a tough game for me to decide, but I have the Jets winning this game.
Okay.
I think that maybe their defense can hold off the Patriots' offense. If their offense can do just enough, maybe they can pull out a close win.
Okay. All right, next up, we got the Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the nice rookie surprises have been the play of C.J. Stroud. Doesn't have a lot of great weapons around him, a lot of offensive linemen hurt. They haven't looked great as an overall team. They got beat handily the last 2 weeks, but his numbers have looked good and his decision-making has looked good. Unfortunately, for the third week, he's going against a team that is more skilled, better roster overall. I got the Jaguars winning this one easily.
I agree. Houston still just is not a great team, and Jacksonville, I think that their offense is just good, and they're gonna win.
Yeah. Next up, we got the Colts versus Baltimore. Colts gonna be out without Anthony Richardson, as far as I know, doing that concussion protocol. 2 rough hits the first 2 weeks, so I think Gardner Minshew will be starting this game. I think Lamar and the offense started to click better last week against Cincinnati. The Colts' pass defense, not great. not great. So I got the Ravens in this one.
I agree. I think that the Colts, their offense is good. I think they are a good team, and they're going to beat the Colts.
Okay. Next up, we got Carolina going to Seattle. Unfortunately, another rookie quarterback out. Bryce Young with an ankle injury that happened on Monday night will not be playing. Andy Dalton, though, the old Red Rifle, will be going to Seattle. He has played well against the Seahawks in the past. As a Seahawks fan, not excited to see him starting. Would have rather seen Bryce Young. So I think this game will be closer than people expect because of that. And I think Carolina's defense is a little underrated and played really good in Seattle last year. Give me the Seahawks, though, in a tight one.
I think the Seahawks are a better overall team, and I do not like Carolina as a team. I don't think that they are good. I think they are the worst team in the NFC South, so I have the Seahawks winning.
All right, next up, the Chicago Bears against Kansas City. Now, Chicago, rough week. Rough week, Chicago. That's all I'm going to say. Rough week. A lot of things going on at the facility, a lot of things going on in general. And we're just going to say rough week. But I will say this. Kansas City's offense has not really clicked yet. And hasn't looked great. They haven't had a really come-up-game performance. The Chicago defense is not good. It's not good. But I think Justin Fields is going to run the ball around. And sometimes Kansas City lets these teams hang around. So give me a Kansas City. But I think it's going to be a little closer than people might expect.
I agree. I think Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champions, against the defending team, well, not really defending, but the team that was the worst last season.
Yep. Number one pick before they traded it away, right?
Yeah. Chicago, their entire offense is just not good. Their defense is not good, and the Chiefs, they're going to win this one.
All right.
I feel confident in that.
Yes. Next up, Cowboys versus Cardinals. Now, Cowboys got some sad news. Always sucks to lose a player like Trayvon Diggs in practice, but the way their front seven is playing, I'm not saying this is as big a deal as possible. Now, I'll say they could have brought in Stephon Gilmore, so they still have a top-tier corner, but I think their defense is going to do great, and against Arizona, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. So, Cowboys all the way over the Cardinals.
Yeah, we saw what happened to the Giants. I don't think there's a way that Arizona wins this against such a good defense. I think Dallas will win.
All right, next up, we got the Steelers versus the Raiders. The old 1970s feared rivalry back in that decade when they were battling it out for AFC titles. Not so much lately. But either way, Steelers have a chance to kind of right the ship. Vegas really hoping to rebound from that horrible defeat against Buffalo. Really need to play a complete game, Vegas. Only played good in spots. And Pittsburgh's offense needs to get alive. But with that said, I think T.J. Watt makes a big play. Maybe strip sacks Jimmy G. Give me the Steelers.
I think that even with the Steelers beating the Browns last week, I don't think it matters that much. They had 2 defensive touchdowns in that game.
They did.
So I think the Raiders, if their offense is good and the Steelers' defense doesn't play that great, then I think that they have a good chance of winning. So I have the Raiders.
You have the Raiders. Oh, okay. All right, next up, our Monday night matchup. The Rams versus the Bengals. Now, Cincinnati fans, it's rough out there. It's rough out there with Joe Burrow's calf. Not sure if he's not practicing all week. Won't know maybe till that day if he's playing or not. And for the Rams, a lot to be excited about. You went toe-to-toe with San Francisco last week for 3 quarters. You have a good chance to be 2-1. You don't know what quarterback you're going against. Your defense is playing okay. But I'm just going to take Stafford and the Rams. I think there's just too many variables with Cincinnati that are just out of control, and I don't understand. And I'm taking the Rams. I can't believe I'm saying it.
Yeah, I think the Bengals, Joe Burrow is either going to be out or recovering from an injury. So So I have the Rams winning. I think that with Stafford and the offense, and if Bengals defense doesn't get anything going, then the Rams could win this one.
Okay.
So I have them win.
All right, that's it, folks. That's our picks for Week 3. We'll be back on Tuesday to do a recap. I know this week our recap video came out late due to scheduling. We're going to get back on a good schedule this week coming up, and we'll get a recap video for you on Tuesday evening, and then get our picks in for Friday next week. So we appreciate all those that listen. We're so thankful that you watch this with us. Have a great week. Enjoy your football, and take care.